Hey everybody, Wilfie here. I just thought I would spend a few more minutes, not really more than about maybe 10 or 15, wait for the video to hit 30 minutes, to talk one last time about the scam called WakeUpNow. I've got a big laundry list of notes here to go over, and this one's going to be nice and juicy. There's a link to the document that I'm going to be referencing throughout this whole rambling video tonight. It is the 2013 annual report published by the company itself, discussing its cash flow, its current assets, its debts, its performance, issues that it faces, that sort of thing. As it turns out, the company has had a stock on not the New York Stock Exchange or anywhere major, but on the OTC markets, the over-the-counter market. And for the last, I would say 2 to 3 years, that penny stock has sat there right at 1 cent per share. The company has issued over 150 million shares as of April 1st, 2014, and they're worth, a penny each, so the company's got a market cap of not very much. And I've raised that point before. But as it turns out, in March of this year, there was a sudden, very small spurt of purchases. Maybe 1,000 shares worth. I mean, the volume was really low, comparatively speaking. But the share price made it all the way up to $8.10 on tax day, as it happens. And then, of course, the volume decreased, and now the stock is on its way back down. It's at like $7.20 at the moment, and it'll crash back down to a penny. In my humble opinion, I'm thinking that this is the visible symptom of a pump and dump scheme. But anyway, that's not why I'm making this video. This is about the rest of their annual report. This is the document that essentially serves as the smoking gun. It's all the proof we need contained in one handy document that this thing is a pyramid scheme, that the company knows it, that the company is failing, it's losing money hand over fist, and it's not likely to survive even throughout the end of 2014. In fact, it's already borrowed $2 million from one of its chief officers, and it's burning through that money just to stay operational this first quarter of the year 2014. So, you can find this document for yourself from the OTC website. I've linked that in the video description, and I encourage you to download it and take a look. It's about, let me see. I had it open. Let's see if I can remember where the hell it is. Open that beastie back up. It's 45 pages long. It's not really that bad, and it makes for fascinating reading. If you really want to know the inner workings of this company and the scheme that it's operating, you really just need to read this document. It's a full disclosure of basically everything the company does, everything it owns, everything it owes to potential investors. It's essentially a part of a prospectus, as if they were trying to convince somebody to invest some more money, which incidentally is part of what they did. So, I've already covered the stock itself. The coincidence that the value spiked leading up to April 15th and then immediately started dropping again, it could just be coincidence that it happened to peak on tax day, or it could be indicative of an attempt to dodge some taxes. If you intentionally buy a stock that's overvalued and it loses money, well, you get to write that loss off. But of course, you still own the shares, or even if you don't own the shares anymore, you could still get converted shares, you could still get dividends paid, or even in the event of a bankruptcy, which is probably very likely here soon, you get a slice of whatever's left. I mean, shareholders tend to be last on the list of people who get paid out of bankruptcy proceedings, but this could all have been very cleverly arranged to make sure that the actual cash generated by these stock sales has already moved along and ended up in the right pockets, so that when the Stock becomes worthless again. Nobody's really lost anything, but they can claim it on their taxes as a loss. So, anyway, it could be a tax dodge. It's very obviously a pump and dump. If anybody outside the company was stupid enough to buy these shares, they're getting screwed. There's no way they're going to get their money back. So that's just an interesting little side note. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this document. Incidentally, all the stock discussion starts on page 4 and goes through page 5. The real interesting numbers for this company start on page 9 and run through page 11. There's also a bit of there's another balance sheet on page 19. And all of my numbers that I'm about to quote here come from those 4 pages. In 2013, WakeUpNow lost $4,548,504. $4.5 million of a net operating loss. At the end of the year, the company only had $400,000 of cash and cash equivalents, like short-term bonds, CDs, that sort of thing. And at the end of the year, while it only had $400K of assets and cash, it has nearly a $10 million deficit of debts that it owes, and a stockholder deficit of, oddly enough, the exact amount that it claimed as a net operating loss, $4.5 million. In fact, those numbers line up a little bit too conveniently. But anyway, so the company claims that it owes almost $15 million. And its revenue, which is the one number I forgot to write down, actually. Head back over to page 9 here. Its net revenues were only $12 million. And it owes $15 million. And it had a net operating loss. So, it owes more than it even makes in a year, just money passing through it. It doesn't get to keep that revenue. A lot of it goes right back into its expenses and so on. So, they're in a lot of trouble. There's no question. They lost, they have assets that are just 10% of their annual loss, which means there's really nothing to liquidate. If they decide to close up shop tomorrow, there's about $400K worth of junk that they could possibly liquidate and distribute to shareholders and debtors, or creditors rather. Not really very much. They owe $15 million, and there's only about $400,000 that they can spread out across those creditors. They're screwed. If the company files for bankruptcy, all the company's creditors are screwed, and so are their members, by the way. So, just in case you were curious, maybe this is just a fluke. Maybe they did better in 2012 or 2011. No, they didn't. In 2012, they had a net loss of $3.3 million. In 2011, they had a net loss of $2 million. Well, $1.9 million. In 2011, they only had $109,000 cash and cash equivalents on hand. The funniest part is that on December 31st, 2012, they had a whopping $4,000 cash on hand. So they literally were almost completely broke. The reason I mention these numbers, now these numbers come straight from WakeUpNow's management and accountants. These are the numbers they're giving us and publishing publicly. The reason these numbers are important is that one of the most common claims made by people defending this scheme is that the company is big and it's growing. Every day it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just going to take over the world, or take over the marketing world, and it's the new way of doing business. Not with these numbers, it's not. They're sinking fast. Year over year, they've increased their deficit. They've suffered worse and worse losses every year since 2011, when they started reporting again. Oh, in 2010 they lost money too, but we've already covered that, because that was the last publicly available document that they offered us. So, for 3 years straight, they've been losing an increasing amount of money each year. Their assets haven't really grown by that much. Their debts have certainly gone up, and there's just not much revenue growth either. So, no, this company's not growing at all. In fact, it's digging itself a deeper and deeper hole that it's increasingly unlikely it'll ever be able to dig itself out of. They're sinking. Now, as we move through the document, there's a whole bunch of really interesting statements. And as people talk and brag about how this company is big and getting bigger, how it's going to be around for a long time, how they're going to just patiently grow their own businesses and make tons of money with the scheme, it's important to quote a statement straight from this annual report. These are the words of WakeUpNow. Page 11. At December 31st, 2013, the company has a significant working capital deficit. These conditions raise substantial doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern. Plain English, they're not sure they can stay in business anymore. They're running out of money, they're running out of ways to raise money, and they know the shit's about to hit the fan. They're flat out saying it, guys, we're sunk. We don't know if we can pull this one out. Page 24, they make a very similar statement. They made the same statement in 2011 and 2012, and they managed to borrow money each of those years to keep running, to stay operating. It seems like that in 2013 they exhausted the last of their available credit. The last $2 million they raised came straight from their own CEO, or COO, I forget which one it is, but one of the executives loaned the company $2 million to keep it going. So, once you're down to your own people lending you money, you're gone. There's no way they can pull this one off. On page 13, there are two interesting details. And this is another claim that we can debunk here. There were some videos posted a few months ago, maybe 6 to 8 months ago, showing a tour of WakeUpNow's shiny new offices. Look how successful this company is. I mean, they've got their own offices now. I mean, they're very fancy. This is real impressive. Only success can buy this kind of thing. Except it didn't. It's leased. They don't own any property at all. In fact, they own zero real estate. All of the office space that they use is leased. Another company owns it. They're just paying to rent it. Which means as soon as the company falls flat on its face, goes bankrupt, there's no real estate to sell either. There's no real property to sell. Whoops. Sorry, shareholders. Before we move away from page 13, there's another interesting segment that talks about the company's cash flow problems. The company doesn't consider the membership dues that it charges, charges the $100 a month and $100 to start for every participant. It doesn't count those as receivables, meaning it never actually counts on having that money come in. It also doesn't consider unpaid dues or refunds that it has to issue as bad debt. That's a very weird way of doing accounting when your entire business is built on recruiting members and paying members to recruit more members. It's also a convenient way to avoid a whole bunch of taxes, but I digress. The interesting part here is that by describing this entire situation and their solution to working with the accounting, they're acknowledging that there's a really high turnover rate among its members. Because you wouldn't have these problems if you had regular routine members who pay every month and don't ever deviate from the norm. The fact that they have to mention that they deal with refunds and cancellations all the time, well, it means that people are canceling a lot. So, later on in the document, the company goes on to describe exactly what products and services it offers. And it gives a good amount of detail. And again, we can debunk a lot of the claims that people make about the products and services that WakeUpNow sells. And at the risk of sounding like a complete dick, I'm vindicated here in my claims of my own, my criticisms about the scheme and the products they sell as completely worthless junk. First up, starting on page 32, incidentally, this is pages 32 through 34 of that document, linked right down there in the description. WakeUpNow branded products are manufactured and drop-shipped on demand. The company doesn't maintain any stock of its own. It offers no cash back on any of these products, the stuff that it brands for itself, and it claims that the real benefit of buying these things is that they're sold at a discounted rate so that members can mark it up and resell it to the public. Can any of you tell me if you've ever even heard of the various products that WakeUpNow actually sells? Have you ever actually bought their energy drink? Do you know of any customer that isn't already a member of WakeUpNow who's actually bought their energy drinks or their coffee? Nobody does, because nobody ever has. The next claim, or the next product they offer, is the deal stream. As it turns out, this is the big pile of, freebies or near freebies, or good discounts and coupons that people make, or have access to. And as it turns out, they have a team of people who just scour the web looking for little deals here and there. It's mostly overstocks, inventory reductions, wholesale offers that these various screeners think that people might be interested in buying. They generate affiliate links, and I'll get to the affiliate marketing here in a minute, that members are expected to just spam everywhere they can, and each sale generated from those links generates commissionable volume. It's essentially like Fat Wallet or Deal News, except a lot worse. Mostly because, WakeUpNow gets a cut of the action, in addition to the affiliate network that made the referral in the first place. I'll get to that here in a minute. Oh look, I'll get to that right now. We have the Cashback Affiliate Network. This is the component that people brag about that supposedly represents the real meat and potatoes of what WakeUpNow offers. These are the bargains and the amazing deals that are only available through WakeUpNow. Except that's not even remotely true. Their cashback affiliate network is literally nothing more than an API hook into an existing set of affiliate marketing networks. Other companies run these networks, and they have been for years. It's similar to Amazon's merchant program, where you can generate links to different products on Amazon's site, and any sale you generate, you get a little slice of the action. Well, that happens all over the web. And you can join these things for free, get the links for free, and start churning out little tiny nuggets of money. It's usually not very profitable unless you can do it in volume. And, WakeUpNow happens to have at least a handful of members that are going to spam these stupid links everywhere they can. Or actually go buy these products themselves. And of course, WakeUpNow gets a cut of every sale. If members went to these affiliate networks themselves and signed up and used those links instead of the links through WakeUpNow, they would actually get a bigger slice of the affiliate money pie. By going through WakeUpNow, the affiliate still pays the same amount to WakeUpNow. The company then gives a tiny little sliver of that money back to the member who generated the sale in the first place. They're a middleman. They're literally a middleman, just skimming off the top. Finally, we get to the Vacation Club. Now, this is something that a few defenders of WakeUpNow over the last few months have tried to beat me over the head with. Well, hey, I can go to the Vacation Club and get these amazing deals and travel anywhere I want to and only spend a couple $100. Blah, 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 blah. And you can only do this through WakeUpNow, of course. So say the claims. Well, no, that's not even remotely true. It's a search engine. Comically, it's a search engine you have to pay $100 to gain access to. And all it does is search for unused inventory and short-term availability deals. In other words, if you want to take advantage of this vacation club, you better not care where you're going, you better not be too picky on the dates, and you'd better have your bags packed and ready to go now. It's worth pointing out, of course, and in fact, this document does, that you can get these deals from practically anywhere, including Expedia, Orbitz, Priceline. They even mention Priceline specifically. It's integrated right into the system. They explicitly point out that WakeUpNow is not a travel agency, nor does it sell flights, hotels, or any type of travel. It's literally just a search engine. People can find these deals anywhere without paying any fees to WakeUpNow, and they're probably going to find better deals. They admit this right there in this document. That's on pages 32 through 34, where they discuss all these different products, including the Vacation Club. It's good reading. You should check that out. I'm back, baby! Let's try this in SD instead of high def. Apparently I put a really crappy slow SD card in my camcorder, and it finally ran out of buffer memory and cut me off during my amazing rant about how shareholders are getting screwed without lube. And I'm going to beat that dead horse into the ground. Anyway, pages 34 and 35 of this annual report document covers the different ways that the company could potentially, screw the shareholders. On page 34, the very first disclaimer, whatever, that the document makes is that there's been no due diligence. Nobody outside that company has ever reviewed or audited the company's affairs or financial condition. The statements they make in the annual report are just from the management. No one's ever independently verified any of it. So they could be lying through their teeth and hiding a shit ton of money and just not reporting it. Now, this isn't very likely because this has been filed through the SEC. Not that they're exactly trustworthy these days, but, at least if they get caught lying on that document, they can go to jail. If they don't have enough money to bribe the feds, but, I digress. On page 35, the next little bit of shareholder screwery is where the company points out that it can deliberately dilute the ownership percentage of any shareholder because it can issue new stock. It's issued about 150 million shares, and I believe they claim to be allowed to issue up to 180 million. So if you own, 5% of this crappy-ass company, well, they can fix that by issuing some more shares. And assuming they get sold, well, it doesn't matter. If they're issued, suddenly you don't own 5% anymore. You own less. Good for you. Way to go. Then they go on to point out that the company trades on a very immature market, specifically the over-the-counter market. They've got very low liquidity because they've got very low volume. Practically nobody's actually trading this stock. They expect to experience major price volatility. What you pay for the stock today is almost guaranteed not to be the price it's selling at tomorrow. Here's a hint. It's going down. Finally, they admit flat out that shareholders may not actually be able to sell their shares at all. Whoops. That's a pisser if you've spent, $100,000 to buy, a shit ton of their worthless stock. You won't be able to sell it again. There goes that money. Now, for the big section. This is where I get to really gloat and say, told you so! Let's talk about the pyramid scheme itself. The company spends a lot of time in its risk analysis discussing all the different ways that its pyramid scheme is vulnerable to being shut down and not being profitable anymore. And yes, they do actually say the words pyramid scheme, but we'll get to that. The fun starts on page 36. And this whole section lets me debunk a very large number of claims that have been made by these shills defending the scheme for months now. Been bickering with these people for 9 months, and over 2,000 comments later, there are still people insisting that this thing is not a pyramid scheme, not a scam, sells legitimate products, isn't dependent on recruiting new members, not illegal, and that they're paying members all sorts of money. Page 36. We'll start there. Quote, "We primarily distribute our products through our direct selling distributors, and we depend on them to generate almost all of our revenue. This confirms that members produce almost all of the scheme's revenue, not actual sales. They're entirely dependent on membership fees and sign-up fees for the bulk of their revenue. They're practically selling nothing except this membership and sales opportunity." So there's one myth debunked. Next, quote, "We experience high turnover among distributors from year to year. This confirms that most members don't really stick around that long. Certainly jives with their 96% failure rate. So all those claims from different shills over the last few months saying that, oh, I'm sticking around for the long haul and I'm building a big team and we're really successful and we're going to stick around, bullshit. Practically everybody bails out of this thing really quick. But there's more details on that later, so I'll leave that point alone for now. Next quote. Same page. This is a really good page. "To maintain sales and increase sales in the future, we need to continue to retain existing distributors and recruit additional distributors. To increase our revenue, we must increase the number of and/or the productivity of our distributors." There's the admission that it's a pyramid scheme. They have to recruit more people to keep their revenue going. That's the textbook definition of a pyramid scheme. Without recruiting more members in increasing numbers, they don't generate any more revenue. Without existing members staying in the scheme and pushing really hard to recruit more people, no more revenue. Revenue starts to dwindle. You notice there's no mention there. Well, the word sales appears one time, and that's in an effort to increase sales. They're not talking about product sales. They're talking about memberships, because that's their real bread and butter. The next quote that I'm going to bring up here, I found this one really interesting. This is part of how they get away with making some of the ridiculous claims they do. Quote, "We rely primarily upon our distributor leaders to recruit, train, and motivate new distributors." This is a clever way of saying we don't actually teach these people anything, and we don't necessarily pay any attention to what they say, how they say it, or how they sell the product, or the pitch, the scheme. They provide little to no direct training or support for individual members, and they rely entirely upon the training skills, or the lack thereof, as we've seen from all these idiots trying to protect the thing, of other contractors, independent contractors. They don't vet or review or audit promotional materials, statements, or sales tactics that any of these people come up with, and they conveniently insulate themselves from liability for false claims because they can just say, hey, they're independent contractors. We don't have any control over what they say. Very convenient. They can just let those contractors say and do whatever they want. Let the contractor get in trouble. They leave their own members out to twist in the wind if they screw up. But that gets revisited later too, so they're kind of screwing themselves. We'll get to that. The next interesting bit on page 36 is this huge list of factors that the company thinks could easily negatively affect the number and productivity of its members. There's all sorts of things they see happening that could really screw them. Inability to sell products to the retail public. Well, that's already happening. Nobody ever buys their crap. No one's ever heard of it outside the scheme. Adverse publicity regarding the company, its products, its distribution channel, or even its competitors. There's a recurring theme that's starting right here. They do not like having any limelight shined or focused on them or their industry. They refer to their industry quite often in the subsequent pages that we're going to cover. They're They're like cockroaches. They scatter when there's light. Lack of interest in existing or new products. Pretty much everybody yawns when some random fly-by-night company comes out with an energy drink, because we totally need more of those. Lack of a sponsoring story that generates interest for potential victims. Sorry, members. I added the victims part. These people actually think that there's a single narrative that will most effectively sell this scheme to potential victims. And you can tell because practically every sales pitch video you see out there boasts of big incomes, stealing money from ATMs, driving fancy cars, living in nice apartments. It's all conspicuous consumption. And the theme is always the same. You're free to piss away your money any way you like because you just have so much of it through the scheme. That's a pretty boring narrative, but it obviously works a little bit. But they realize that the story's starting to fall apart. It's not working as well as it used to. Next up, any negative public perception of the company's products, distributors, or even the direct selling business in general. Well, derp. People hate door-to-door salesmen. People hate it when friends or family or even colleagues start trying to peddle some random junk they got from a catalog from some company they paid a few $100 to get a starter kit from. Avon, Amway, WakeUpNow, Mary Kay, all these different MLM companies, they just spew marketing through friends, coworkers, and colleagues. Everyone hates it. People don't have a very good or favorable view of direct marketing in the first place. So they're already starting from a pretty low point. And any kind of negative publicity, even if it's not aimed at this specific company, say Amway gets in trouble for something, or Avon or Mary Kay gets busted for some random thing, that's going to make people more suspicious and leery about joining a scheme that seems like it, or it seems similar. Next, this one's funny. I include it because it made me chuckle. They're concerned that actions they take to enforce their own policies and procedures could impact their business negatively. The note I made there is, I'll believe that when I see it. There's no reason to believe whatsoever that this company has ever taken action against any of its distributors, simply because you can just scroll through the 2,000 comments that I've dealt with on my first Wake Up Now video to see just how nasty the supporters of this scheme really behave. If this company gave one rat's ass about the behavior of these people, they'd have started reining them in months ago. They haven't. These people are still out there being complete douchebags. This company doesn't care to stop it. Finally, and this is the best one, they're concerned that regulatory actions or charges against the company or others in its industry could negatively impact their business. This is proof positive that they know exactly what they're doing, they know it's illegal, and they're waiting for the hammer to drop. You can't get any simpler than that, except they managed to. We'll get to that in a bit. I keep saying that, but there's lots more juicy details, I promise. We flip the page to 37. This is another section now. This isn't part of that list. The list is done now. Wake Up Now is worried that that misbehaving members might expose them to fines or legal action. Remember earlier I mentioned that the company has a hands-off approach to its training. Independent contractors can say and do what they please. The company has plausible deniability, and it can claim it's got no control over what people say or do when they're trying to sell this scheme. Well, the company knows what it's doing, and it knows that it's walking a fine line. This is the best illustration of that. They know their members are lying about the scheme in order to sell it. They know they're using hard sales or high-pressure tactics. They're using peer pressure, flat out lying, making boastful claims of income they can't prove, and the company knows it. They haven't done a thing to stop it, and they realized that it's really just going to take one distributor, one member, to piss off the wrong person to start a big snowball effect of investigation, regulatory intervention, and it could knock down the whole house of cards. Even better, and they spent a good chunk of the page on this next one. The company is extraordinarily concerned about laws and regulations, especially those concerning pyramid schemes that will prohibit or severely restrict its sales efforts. It's also very concerned that new regulations or legislation could harm its business. They use the phrase pyramid scheme in describing the various laws that could hamper their operation. There it is, folks. They flat out admit that they're operating a pyramid scheme. Right there in black and white in their annual report. We can officially end that debate. There is no longer any doubt. It's straight from the horse's mouth. It's a pyramid scheme. Plain and simple. They know it. We know it. It's right out there. Go ahead and argue that one, guys. Next up, even more damningly, more damning, damningly is not a word, more damning, the company complains pretty loudly about laws and regulations in its current market. Laws that impose order cancellations, product returns, inventory buybacks, and cooling off rights for consumers and members. They're upset that they don't just get to play the caveat emptor card and say, well, hey, you bought it, you're stuck with it. They think it sucks that they have to actually offer refunds and buy back inventory. They're also worried about laws and regulations that require the company or its members to register with government agencies. Because, as we all know, when you're perpetrating a scam, government oversight sucks. They're also worried that these regulations impose caps on the amount of commissions the company can pay its members. This shreds another claim. The unsubstantiated claim that, oh, this company is paying some people 6 figures a year, or, living wages, that, they don't have to work anywhere else. They can just work for WakeUpNow and they're making $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year. There are actual limits imposed by the government on what the company can actually pay these people. There's a cap. You can't ever go past it, no matter how well you perform. It's also kind of weird because that means the scheme gets to keep more of the money, but whatever. Whoever said our government made much sense. But this does prove that the scheme isn't making anybody rich, except the owners. Participants are capped. There's an upper limit to how much they can ever make, and it's not as high as people like to think it is. Finally, they mention the concern that some of these regulations could require the company to make sure that its members aren't being compensated based on how they recruit new members. Why would they be worried about that unless that's exactly what all its members are doing and they know it? Of course, they're worried about it because that's exactly what they're doing. But anyway, that's a nice little side note there. Page 38 is the second to last page I'm going to talk about. The company is gravely concerned about any regulatory or other challenges affecting it directly or others in its industry, especially if they create adverse publicity, increase scrutiny of their industry, or cause problems in recruiting or motivating members and customers. These guys are terrified of any scrutiny at all being focused on them, their operations, or even their industry. They know they're doing something illegal. They do not want people looking. They don't want investigators prying around, and they don't want the government sniffing to look for clues. Finally, and most deliciously, because again, one of the early claims I saw defending WakeUpNow was, the FTC reviewed this company, and they even said it's not a pyramid scheme. Well, that letter turned out to be fake, of course. The FTC doesn't do that. Doesn't do that sort of review. The company is specifically worried about the FTC or other comparable state or federal agencies taking action that could negatively impact it. It's also worried that it's especially vulnerable to civil litigation by current or former members. Pro tip: if you're a former member and you lost some money, get a lawyer. You can probably sue these fuckers and get some of your money back. Handy little tidbit there I thought you might appreciate. I love that they're specifically worried about the FTC. I guess that whole faked FTC letter is going to bite them in the ass after all, isn't it? Finally, page 41. This is the last page of the document that I'm going to bring anything up from. It's been repeatedly claimed throughout the last 9 months that WakeUpNow is run by some fine, upstanding people. The officers of the company are experts in their fields, and they've been at this a long time. They're fine, upstanding men. Not so much. On page 41, the company discloses that 3 of its current corporate officers have previously been involved in bankruptcy proceedings of the companies that they used to manage or operate. Yeah, WakeUpNow has 3 people on its board that have driven companies into the ground. That's an awesome track record right there, guys. So that's it. Those are the juicy bits, anyway, of the WakeUpNow 2013 annual report. They're hemorrhaging money. They admit they're running a scam, that nothing they produce or sell is unique or special, that they're scared to death of the government coming down on them or laws changing unfavorably, and they know they've got some scumbags running the whole show. They've borrowed money to keep operating this year. They've run out of credit. Their net loss keeps going up every year. They're losing money like crazy. They're done. The scheme is collapsing. The pyramid is falling. And I don't give it 6 months. If they're still around in 6 months, I'll be impressed. Because they've duped some other, sucker investor into spending some money. But the smart money is on this thing collapsing within the next 2 to 3 months. It'll be very interesting to see if they make it to the next compensation plan update, which they always publish in August of each year. So, that's it. This video is probably like 40 minutes by now. Sorry about that. I promised 10 to 15, didn't I? I'm a software guy. We suck at estimates. Anyway. Yeah. This company sucks. Their numbers suck. They're lying through their teeth. Except in this document where they're pretty honest. Go read it for yourself if you don't believe me. I know that the WakeUpNow supporters have probably already stopped watching this video and they've gone to get a towel to mop up all the foam they've frothed at their mouth. But if you're involved in this company, if you're a member and you're paying $100 a month, or you're getting your membership free because you've scammed other people into joining, bail out. You don't have much time left before this thing falls apart and leaves you holding the bag. No hard feelings. I don't expect any of you to ever turn up and apologize for the lousy things you've said to me, the insults you've made, and the idiotic arguments you've presented for the world to mock. It goes with the territory of debunking these things. And yes, I'm being a smug little bastard because, well, I told you so. Go read the annual report for yourself. It's very interesting reading, and it'll teach you a lot. Except perhaps to post a video gloating when WakeUpNow actually shuts down, this is probably going to be my last video on the subject. It's just getting boring. I'll leave the comments enabled on the old videos because people still trickle in there and still want to argue about this thing. But at this point, I'm probably going to just point them to this video. It's getting boring arguing with all these guys. So, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. And if you're involved in this company, get out. You're going to do yourself a favor. So, until next time, thanks for watching, and I will see you later, guys.